Gang, welcome back to another episode of the off season. We are basically going to get into a general overview of my plan of action for this whole entire off season. Now, I've basically gone through my training days with you. So basically, I've got like the pull and hamstrings and the push and quads ×2. That's obviously the training split. But I was going to show you guys just an overview of how I'm actually setting up my entire off season, from nutrition to recovery to everything in between, basically, just so you can get an insight into how I personally like to run massing phases, essentially, right? Because I honestly think that a lot of people know how to run fat loss phases, but when it comes to off seasons, what happens is they shit the bed. So I feel like it's quite important just to show you an overview of how I personally set up my own off season, and also so yeah, you can basically take that away and look different every time you go into a massing phase and then shred down, rather than basically going into an off season massing all the way up and then basically when you come down you're like, oh, I look the same. If you follow something very similar to this, you might actually look a little bit different. So there's that. Also, because I am self-coached now, this is an accountability thing. So if I go off track with any of these, shoot me in the face. You have that priority in the comments. Anyway, I've basically written down everything here, as you can kind of see. You might not be able to see on camera, but I've basically written everything down and I'm going to explain it. So the off-season plan of action, obviously we know the split. Put on hamstrings ×2, and then obviously pushing quads ×2. That's fairly kind of easy. Cardio wise, on rest days, we're going to do 60 minutes of biking, which sounds like a long time. It's really not, and it's actually quite fun for me, so that's cool. We do have 3 rest days because we have a 4-day split. So on one of the days, I'm actually just going to go to golf. So I'm going to count that as kind of like cardio, because believe it or not, golf is actually quite strenuous, and I know to someone who potentially doesn't play golf, you're like, well, you're just hitting a ball, I suppose, like up and down a field. It's like, is it really that strenuous? I urge you to go and play a round of 18 and tell me how taxed you are at the end of it. So yeah, it's a doozy. Goal. What is my goal? Obviously, to grow systemically. I want to grow maximally, so there's that element. And in order for me to do that, I need to be in a massing phase for as long as possible. So the reason why we have some level of cardio in is I do want to stay fit throughout this off season, so I can work within higher rep ranges. But I also don't want to mini cut for a whole entire year. So like, I don't want to cut or do a pullback phase or anything else like that until this time next year. I don't want to do it. So essentially, if I start to cut in like fucking January, tell me off, because I'm sick to death of, I suppose, like having very short off seasons. I want to grow maximally, and in order to do that, I just need time in an off season. I need time in a surplus. And again, a big reason why a lot of people look the same every time they diet down is they either don't stay in the massing phase for long enough, or they're too, I suppose, like aggressive with the push-up. So like the rate of gain is like 1-2% per week, and it's like you kind of have to be very, very, very like slow and I suppose like reactive to the physique. So some weeks I might have a 0% rate of gain, some weeks I might have a 1% rate of gain, but in general, like a general overview, I'm going to be sitting anywhere between about 0.1 to about 0.4% per week. That's going to be my average aim. So it's going to be quite a slow push up, but with the aim of getting absolutely fucking strong whilst staying fit. That's the main goal for me. So yeah, basically I want to grow systemically. I want to grow systemically for the next 3 years. So I suppose like the massing phase for me is going to be done within about 3 stages. So ideally I want a year and then a pullback phase, a year and a pullback phase, and then probably about 8 months, a pullback phase, and then a prep. And that's how I'm looking at things right now. In terms of like the business element, because I feel like a lot of people neglect, I suppose, like when they're talking about like the plans of action in terms of like their massing phase, they kind of neglect like the aspect of life, which to me is like, I want a massive push towards my business in the next 3 years. And I actually, by this time next year, I want a third business. So I've already got 2 businesses. I do want a third business, and it's something that I've wanted to do for fucking ages, and we just haven't really had the opportunity to do so. And I think within the next year, I'm probably going to be in a good position financially to then start going into this new business venture. So I'll take you along for the journey, of course, as always. But yeah, there's going to be a massive push, at least for this year, and at least in the next 3 years, of like really driving our business, because essentially it's like, there's no denying when, like, as I have become more financially, I suppose, like independent and financially secure and safe, my stress levels have come down and down and down. I know that it says, like, the old saying is like, money can't buy happiness, but like, I am the least stressed I've ever been by earning the most I've ever earned, right? When I was an engineer, I can hand on heart say that I was really stressed about like money coming in, which then taps into like training, because it really does. Like, if you're stressed out about life, then it will kind of like dictate your training volume and training intensity, right? And you might not be focused towards the session and stuff like that. But yeah, so I suppose like I need to push my business, but I also need to recognize that I have a job at hand, which is obviously be a bodybuilder as well. So yeah, I basically want to drive systemic growth, basically, is what I'll say. I want to grow the businesses, and I want to grow as a bodybuilder as well, and also as a human, because I feel like it's very important that we try and grow as humans as well, from a knowledge standpoint and stuff like that. So that's all good, and that should all be a part of the process anyway, especially as an online coach as well. Like, you should want to obviously level up at every opportunity. So there's that, and then obviously from a food element, I'm not tracking at all. The only time I really tracked in the off season, and I'm not gonna front or lie here, the only time I tracked in the off season was actually when I did 4 days of eating. Apart from that, I didn't track at all. Why? Because I was basically eating a meal plan. So I was eating the same thing basically every single day. And then on the occasion of like the Saturday or maybe even the Friday night, I went out for like an off-plan meal. Obviously not in a prep, but in an off-season, I just got for an off-plan meal, and then that's how I set up my nutrition. Same time, like same kind of like thing this time around. The reason why I'm going towards a meal plan situation is because I understand with a lot on my plate, I can't be asked to basically think, what should I have to eat next? It's basically like, I know what I'm having and it's this, and I'm just done with it, right? So I don't really have like an emotional attachment towards food. It's just like, here is food, let's eat it and go. And it's not from a whole like, bro, I have to eat every single day, I have to eat at this time or anything else like that to grow maximally as a bodybuilder. It's quite simply, I just don't have the brain capacity right now to think about meals and stuff like that. I don't really care. So yeah, and when I do track, I'm not going to track on MyFitnessPal, I'm going to track on MacroFactor, purely from the simple standpoint of when I did track in prep, when I obviously had to like move down foods and stuff like that, I found that MyFitnessPal interface was terrible. So then I moved on to MacroFactor, and it was pretty good. I'm not affiliated, that's just what I'm doing. And then yeah, basically an off plan every week. I'm not gonna lie though, my off plans are like, I'll go for a nice steak. Like I went to Greece last week, and it's like I had pretty much free range the whole time I was there, and all I wanted to do was basically eat steak and eat tuna steak. So like, I'm not a dickhead with food. Even if you gave me free range, I'll probably eat fairly decently anyway. And then recovery is basically going to be training and sleep dictated. I think a lot of people look at like recovery as like ice baths and like all these like little meticulous details in terms of like training, like supplementations and stuff like that. Quite simply, a lot of like recovery is dictated by training volume and sleep. If you have them two like lined up, and hydration, if you have all them lined up, you'll be good. So if you aren't recovered, you do less. If you are recovered and you feel like you could do more, you can do more. It's really that simple. So that's basically the whole off-season POA laid out for you. So yeah, if you got any questions about anything, please let me know. And yeah, I will do the shoe vlog, by the way, at some point. I just need some shoes to come, basically. I was gonna do it for this vlog, but I thought no. And I was actually due to do one of these vlogs at some point anyway, so that's that. Anyway, we are actually gonna go train at the coach now, so yeah. Let's get it. And the push stack of choices, the Ghost Pump alongside the Gamer. And yeah, quite simply, the only reason why I do this is quite simply, I just don't like stim pre-workouts. I think I've spoke about this like 400 times on here and on my stories. It's like, I've just never ever got on with stim pre-workouts. It's always like non-stim or like low stim, which this is basically like a nootropic with a little bit of caffeine in it. But like anything north of that in terms of like stims, I'm done. And I majorly crash after a workout, which is not so great when you've got to do work. So yeah, I'll see you at the gym, lads. And we're at the gym, lads. So yeah, today we're training at the coach. We have pull and hamstrings. This is the second I suppose like variation of the pull and hamstrings day that I walked through in previous vlogs. So that's all good. This week, or the whole of this week, is basically a D-volume attack. So keeping a couple of reps in reserve, and I suppose like training with lower volume. The reason why I've done this is actually because last week, as I said like many times in I suppose like previous vlogs and in this vlog, I did go away last week, so I had a complete rest week. So yeah, if I basically full send when I came back, or yeah, basically gone into my I suppose like rotation again, I'd be absolutely sore as shit. So wanted to avoid that, and even saying that, I am fairly sore just from like D-volume work. So yeah, it was likely a good move. So we're basically just like I suppose like reintroducing ourselves into the mesocycle, reintroducing ourselves into the movement patterns, getting used to everything again, and then basically going from there. But yeah, the week away last week was awesome as well. I was saying to that earlier, actually, it was kind of weird because I didn't really think I needed like any time off, but on reflection, after like the third day, yeah, it was kind of one of them ones where I was like, oh shit, actually, I needed some time away. I needed a break. I needed a break away from training, from business and stuff like that, right? Because realistically, when you look back at the last 6 months, I've been like pretty much, I haven't taken a deload or a formal deload in that time. This was the first deload, or yeah, I suppose that like rest week at least, or deload since I started prep basically. So that was the 2nd of January till now, or last week, where I didn't have a rest week or formal deload. I've had like I suppose like half deloads where I've had like 3 days off, but apart from that, yeah, nothing really. So yeah, it was quite nice just to obviously yeah, just take time away from training. I think we all need that at some point, and then I suppose like get chomping at the bit again for training, because I'm sure you've all been through phases where you just kind of like turn up to training, you do, obviously you're progressing and stuff like that, but it's just like it just becomes a bit like robotic. Obviously when you take time away from training and then come back, it's almost like you've just like rejuvenated yourself. So yeah, I suppose like a necessary that I didn't really kind of like consider a necessary, if that makes sense. So yeah, we haven't obviously changed the split, of course. We're still running the same split. Again, this week I'm just gonna basically take it easy. I've got one more session left. I've got the push and quad day at Kratos. And then that's pretty much it. And then next week I'm just gonna full send. So yeah, I did trial a few movements as well. I did contemplate putting this movement in, which is basically just like a rear delt. I suppose it would be a fly. I did contemplate putting this into my mesocycle as almost like a bit of a finisher towards like my upper back. However, I'm not going to do that. And you also see the attack angle here, by the way. This is exactly how the rear delts kind of run. They run down. A lot of people almost come a bit too like laterally with it, which is not how the rear delt actually runs. If you look at it from a fiber standpoint, this just aligns a little bit better. However, I do have a bit of almost like a bit of a scap issue, and every time I do, I suppose like rear delt work, it flares up, and it actually kind of like flared up after this movement here, which again reaffirmed my decision to not take it on, essentially just pick my battles. So yeah, we definitely did that.
Yeah, but apart from that, like the split's all the same. Very much enjoying the Kaiser at the minute, which is basically this air-driven machine, and it's one of the machines actually. I suppose like you saw the back machine and also this one. It's kind of weird because from an external standpoint, you're actually just grabbing tension from air, and it kind of just doesn't look like you're doing a lot because essentially there's no like plate, there's no pin, so you can't really see what someone's working, right? Like realistically, this could be like two plates for all you know, and you have no idea. But yeah, like I can't explain the connection that I get to Kaiser machines. I think I've said this before, but in my honest opinion, I think they're better than Prime. But they just don't look like you're doing any work, which is kind of the unfortunate thing. But yeah, rest assured we're doing work. You'll see at the back end of the set as well, I start to release air. So like here, I'll start to like fail, fail, fail. I'll then start to release air. Then I can get like a couple more reps. And yeah, it's just so valuable for that certain like situation. Um, yeah, I just fucking love Kaiser machines. I really wish I had one for like home, just so I can have a play around with it in the morning, and just get absolutely wham from it. Um, but yeah, very much I suppose like a rejuvenated for this off season. Very much looking forward to taking you guys through this off season. Obviously, it's going to be a massive, massive, massive push up. But it's necessary if I want to do the things that I want to do within, I suppose, like men's physique or just bodybuilding in general. I'm gonna have to have a lengthy time away from prep or stage, right? So yeah, I'll take you guys along for the ride. There'll be plenty of full days of eating. There'll be plenty of fucking training footage along the way, just showing you how I'm structuring things out. But yeah, hope you guys are well. Thank you for watching the vlog, and yeah, 2 weeks are back, baby. They're back.